Ever since 2014, I've wanted to visit Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger at their annual Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. However, it was always out of my budget and I was young, and so year after year went by and I didn't go. I was always hoping to go, and I realized this year, if not now, when? They're in their 90s, Charlie's 99, and any year one or both of them could pass away, and that would kind of lose my chance. Have you ever wanted to see a concert with a musician who's old and then you missed that chance because one of them passed away? Well, I've met people who've experienced that, and that's why I wanted to go to this conference. I decided to take the splurge even though it was a bit costly, and so this is my little vlog to show you all the things I did on my magical trip to Omaha, Nebraska for the first time ever to visit Warren Buffett. I arrived the day before via airplane, and one of the things I explored was a place called Hollywood Candy. It was this giant maze of a candy store with all these different props and decorations, and apparently Warren Buffett and Bill Gates have been here, and Warren Buffett used to frequent this place as a kid. There was all these different rooms and hallways that you can go down and explore. It was so massive. I knew for sure in other states there's no way they could support this because they couldn't afford the real estate, and it was just gonna be more difficult to supply. But here it was possible for whatever reason, so it was such a joy just to walk around. There was even a pinball room with at least a dozen pinball machines all the way in the back, and it just harkened back to some of the stories I heard about Warren Buffett, about how he started a pinball machine business when he was a kid and tried to make money that way, and it started to make sense because in a place like Omaha, I guess they played a lot of pinball and they could support and have the volume for that. So it was really cool seeing all the props. It was almost like a mix of a comic book store as well as an arcade and a candy store, and there was Warren Buffett memorabilia there, and the decorations and comic books and vinyl and all sorts of stuff. On the day of the event, I arrived at 5:45 a.m. to see a bunch of protesters for one of the companies that Warren invested in, as well as very long lines. It was clear to me that I had arrived way too late. I should have woke up earlier. I figured, well, I'm already late, I might as well film. So I spent another 20 to 30 minutes just filming the lines, which were crazy long. One of my goals was really at that point just to meet Monish Pabrai, who said he would be in a certain area. And I looked around and I succeeded. It took a long time, and there was a few helpful people who I asked, hey, do you know Monish? Could you point me in the direction? And they knew both of those things, so they pointed me to where he was. He's a famous money manager who is very smart and good with investing. So I've been following him for many years, since about 2015, and it was great meeting him. He was pretty busy, there's a few people waiting to talk to him, so he was short with me, but I totally understood why. Online that there'd be a free breakfast there, and they held true to that. Now I know what that breakfast looks like. It's basically orange juice, water, and honey buns, so I thought that was pretty good. As you can see, the stadium was packed to the brim, and I got in at the top row, which was also filled up. While I was in line, I was scared that I wouldn't get a seat in the live stadium, and I'd have to watch him through a screen in the overflow room. And so I was very grateful that I was still in the live stadium with him. So that's pretty cool. Now the overflow room does have one perk though, which is that you have the highest chance of getting your question selected to ask to Warren and Charlie, because that room has the least attention. That said, I really wanted to be in the live room with him, and I was, so that was really great. I couldn't believe that I was actually there live with the real person. So that was a cool experience. I think it is better and so fulfilling versus just kind of like watching it online. There were times where I was like, it's not that big of a difference, but there was a certain magic to seeing anything live, as any concert goer understands. So I felt at the end of the day, it was worth it. Now I was pretty far back, so like they were basically dots, even like with the TV screens, but I still felt that it was very fulfilling and worth it. Now after the Q&A session, most people leave. And a pro tip that I discovered is that if you don't leave, you can actually get a very close seat to hear Warren Buffett conclude the meeting and conduct the actual shareholder meeting, which is kind of boring. It's mostly just proxy voting, but as you can tell, I got a much closer seat. Now, after the conference, I went to a networking event. I think it was a Willow Oaks asset management event, which had like free mini burgers and pork sliders and an open bar. And I registered for that, and I thought it was well worth it for the free food. And I also saw Lilu briefly, but there was a crowd of like 30 people, and he didn't stay long to avoid the crowds. I was able to meet Michelle Markey, who is a YouTuber I followed for about 2 or 3 years. She talks a lot about investing. I really wanted to meet her, and by chance I was able to bump into her at that convention networking event. There are a couple other things that I filmed just for my Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts that you can watch. That includes the Nebraska Furniture Mart, walking downtown, and the bazaar. So check those out. The last thing I did was visit Warren Buffett's house and neighborhood, and it was a very modest, above average but modest house that was really charming.